That's awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the Athletes Podcast, and we connected over Instagram, and it was really cool to go through, see some of the stories that you've been involved with. You're a TEDx speaker. You're also a mental health advocate. You're a former junior hockey, professional hockey player. And I appreciate you coming on the podcast, but I want to bring to light the story that you have to share, because it's a pretty incredible one, and you've gone through some major ups and some major downs throughout your life. And I want to basically have you go through the Coles Notes version of what your life has been to this point, and what's gotten you to where you are today.
So was that the introduction?
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm Ryan, and that's the name my parents gave me. And, I was, highly involved with sports at a young age. Started skating at the age of 2. My father was, highly involved with athletics. He was the first Canadian to actually jump 6 feet in the high jump. So he had a really competitive nature, worked hard, kind of instilled those core values into my brother and I. And, I played, I think, almost every sport to man other than cricket and rugby. So, as the years went on, hockey was, my definite number one passion in life. Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, Steve Yzerman, those guys are my idols, growing up. I mean, my room was like a big giant vision board of my hockey idols, so to speak. And, that's all I would dream about all day long. And, you couldn't get that hockey stick pretty much out of my hand after school or whatever. It was, I just wanted to be the best. That was it. And, I left home at the age of, I just turned 16 to pursue my junior career. And, I believe that everything happens for a reason. Unfortunately, but maybe fortunately, and as years go by, a lot of injuries and adversities, came into my experience. That first year away from home was, the dream turned into a bit of a hellish nightmare. Had 4 host families. These are back in the days, where they didn't really screen the billets. And right. So when Dad dropped me off after, I made the team, it was a single lady, God bless her. She had an adopted kid at the time. And, she just, I don't know if her heart was in the right place. I think she was doing it more for, getting the money, obviously, to, house, a junior hockey player at the time. And, there was no food in the house. There was craft dinner, and Top Ramen was really all I was eating on. There was no real nutrition. She didn't know anything about the game of hockey. She never came to any of the games. My dream was to go, be in an awesome family, kind of like I grew up with a great family of my own, but, there was no real love in the house. And, she never came to any of the games or anything, which was, it was tough because, I didn't want to let anybody down. Obviously, my community back home, which is 5 hours away. My first year away from home was in Kelowna. From Vancouver, and so you got all your buddies back home rooting for you, and you got your family rooting for you. You're rooting for yourself, and you're just trying to do the best you can. But it was a go, and after about a month and a half of it was kind of like torture there, to be quite honest with you, with a lot of the hazing and the rituals that went along with being a first year player in those days was real tough. So to have all that kind of compiled on into a bit of a just bearing it really kind of deep down inside, where I was afraid to ask to get moved into a different home. And
you went through and you were a highly touted prospect coming in. Yeah. You were a substantial hockey player coming in at the age of 15, 16. You go to Kelowna and you end up in a situation, obviously, to your point there, where you're talking, and it's not good. You're not even getting proper food, nutrition, and then that starts just a downward spiral.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I humbly say, led the team in scoring in preseason, and, it was, I
As soon as the
my
ramen
aspirate.
kicked in, then it went downhill.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, nutrition is so important to your overall well-being, your mental and physical and spiritual health. Everything plays into all demographics of of just being functioning as like this machine moves forward. Especially when you're moving forward on the ice. And I was fatigued all the time, and without any understanding really why. Back at that age, I had no idea with if you told me what anxiety was or depression or anything to do with mental health, I mean, you'd be like speaking Chinese to me for crying out loud. So, yeah, I guess I learned through osmosis, that first coach that I had, I'm not going to name names. I don't want to downgrade the game of hockey. I love the game of hockey, and I love what it's taught me, about life as well. That the resilience that not just hockey players or can have is just put just believing in yourself, no matter how bad things can get. It's our perception on how bad things can actually get. And for me, it was just it got to the point where came in on such a high. Led the team in scoring. You thinking, I'm going to have a 100-point season this year. I might get rookie of the year, all that kind of stuff. That was my goal. And, I had a hard-ass coach that didn't matter how many points you got. He was all for playing the veteran players and, teaching the 16-year-old who was, myself, the youngest guy on the team at the time, letting a lot of things happen, as far as, the hazing rituals, but not just that, not giving, the younger guys a fair shake. It was a lot of okay, well, it's your first year, so you're going to be sitting on the bench a lot, and you're going to be in the stands taking notes and whatnot. And I pride myself, even then, as being the hardest worker, in practice and whatnot. And yeah, it was just one of those things where it was like the harder I worked, the less I played. And he, unfortunately, this coach, he taught me a lot about how to treat people, though, too. Through the way he treated people with disrespect, I learned how to actually treat people with respect. And, even with those hazing rituals, I was never one to partake. As my following years, as I move forward, it was none of those things I ever, really I partook in. And I stood up for players that were going through a lot of stuff, because I knew that pain and that hurt and how it felt, and how degrading you would feel, getting mistreated by a so-called teammate, so,
Yeah,
and
and
all
you
that.
can. I apologize. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
It's all good.
I apologize for bringing up the darker times in your when you were younger, but you bring up this rookie initiation, and it's something that's slowly getting removed from sports, but it was something that was super prevalent in the 90s and the early 2000s, and even when I was going through, there's still rituals in place that unfortunately the rookies have to deal with, and it's something that sports is trying to eradicate. But how do you, speaking from someone who's gone through it specifically like yourself, how do you think that sports can get rid of this? Is this something that generationally over time it's going to be removed? Or
well, I mean, it can definitely be connotated to bullying. There's no difference between bullying and hazing and these rituals and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is that high school bullying and hockey bullying back in those days, and even now, it's come to my awareness that things are getting better. There's some close friends of mine that have played in the NHL and have come forward. Obviously, guys like Sheldon Kennedy, Theron Fleury, most recently, even Dan Carcillo. All these situations are coming to the forefront now. It's something that I'm okay to talk about. Getting grabbed by the throats, skate thrown at the head, hockey tape on my blades before a practice or a game, Vaseline in the gloves, being taped to the massage bench and getting shaved, Smartie stuck up your butt and then having to eat the Smartie, and if you didn't, something else would happen even worse. There's one ritual, it was called the Gong Show, and that ultimately led to the hot box. And if we didn't make the veterans laugh, and I didn't, I don't think they wanted to laugh. I tried my best, but next thing you know, 8 guys in the back of a bus in a bathroom, butt naked, and all their clothes all tied up in knots, and we weren't allowed to come out of the bathroom until we actually had all our own clothes on. And these are knots that were just tied so tight. And I remember just being in there for hours, sweating, and guys are crying and screaming. Myself, I'm claustrophobic, and I was trying to keep everybody to get, kind of together, mentally. Guys are smacking on the door, and you could hear the veteran players out there laughing. And the thing is that, these veteran players, obviously, they went through probably the same stuff the year before or in years previous. And, maybe it made them feel good or feel better that they had to be that way just because they took on that kind of stuff, say in previous years. But, the coach ultimately is responsible for like letting these things happen. And I'm very aware that a lot of, things are being dissipated on that, so-called level of like playing field, outside, the arena. And obviously, playing into the whole, psyche of the hockey player or any athlete should never have to endure torture. Physical, mental abuse is just like, to me, it just makes people feel like shit. Why would you want to make a teammate feel like shit? And
yeah, it's such a shame that it was like that, and there's still people out there that are bullying and doing those kinds of things. It's a real shame, but that's why it's important for individuals like yourself bringing awareness to it, talking about it, and bringing to light the fact that you've learned from that experience. Obviously an unfortunate one, but it's something that now, hopefully, through talking through it, it's something that won't happen again to anyone else, right? The National Geographic video that you sent me, I want to talk about that, man, because that's pretty crazy. It's 45 minutes of just heart-wrenching. You get involved in some pretty scary stuff. You get involved in the drug game. You start trying to afford things. You go down to Wichita, where and that's halfway through your drug process, where you're dealing weed across the border, driving across with your hockey.
That was like kind of in the beginning, to be honest with you. Yeah,
okay, so let's go through it, because I want to. For people who haven't watched that,
I can even give you guys a link that you can share. Actually, National Geographic. I haven't watched the full episode. I lived that life. I spent 21 hours in London, England. Telling my story to National Geographic. And, you can't really pack in, say 15 years of that life, combined with hockey as well, and get the full story. So,
right.
That's why it's important that, jumping on these podcasts and, just speaking your truth and, what really happened, and, doing it from a real humble standpoint that can hopefully benefit others along the way that don't have to endure or makes, destructive choices that can harm not only them, but their families and their friends, and the ripple effect of obviously negativity. So right. I was scared to go to the rink. I developed the habit of, no matter what team I played for, I was so scared that where I was going to be from one day to the next, when you figure out that you're a commodity sometimes. And I'd be looking back at the coach just all the time, seeing if I was messing up or not, and that was a habit, like a real bad habit, like where I couldn't even focus on the game anymore. So I lost love for the game. And, I got so much gratitude in my heart for, like the fact that I have, wonderful friends, it was, that I've met through the game of hockey. Beyond all the darkness, there's so much goodness in that game, and, in athletics in general. Just the fact of, being, committed to, say a goal, your physical apparatus being in good shape, and just having determination, like, period. But, what happened, I was playing in Tacoma down in the States, and there was a huge demand for BC Bud, which is, world renowned, I guess, is, I know California.
Where we're both from.
What's that?
Where we're both from.
Where we're both from, man. So, it all started off with, I would have been 18 at the time. And, I was kind of at a low with just, I was rated I was rated in the third round that year, my first year of eligibility, but then I got hurt, broke my shoulder in 3 places and dislocated at the same time. And so I was out of the lineup for 4 months and, didn't feel part of the team, didn't know where I fit in, the drinking, sex, drugs, rock and roll, glamorous life off the ice, what people don't see. I succumbed to that and just trying to fit in. Really, I think at the end of the day, we all just want to be accepted and loved at the end of the day. And so I guess I was just trying to find acceptance. I was, just trying to be be loved by not just my teammates, but, obviously the fans and whatnot, but I just didn't know how that looked. I remember one time I skipped school to go to a Bill Clinton rally in Seattle, and I was caught on camera. And I still had to show up for practices, even though I wasn't able to skate or play or anything like that. But the GM and the coach saw me on TV right close to Bill Clinton when he was driving down in his motorcade or whatever it was down by Pike Place Market in Seattle. And so when I showed up to the rink, they had a stationary bike on the bench, and it was freezing cold in this bloody practice rink that we had. And he said, "Do not stop pedaling until the practice is over." The practice went on for about an hour and a half. I mean, it was hard because all the guys are chirping at you and laughing and flipping pucks at you. The coach is laughing over in the corner, but that the way that made me feel emotionally was tough. I was, even though I probably should have been a good boy, good little soldier, and gone to school that day, I just, things happen. And, it was at that point there, it was like, hockey's just, it's just losing the love of the game but wanting to still be a part of. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, an opportunity falls on my lap. It was just like, okay, well, now I got these guys that I met from the University of Washington. I got guys, it was, how it is. It's, the big parties, the hockey player parties are usually there's a lot of guys in the drug trade there as well. It's kind of a similar lifestyle off the ice. It's just that fast lane lifestyle. And, I was one of the only guys. There's 2 guys, I think, on that team from BC that year. And one of the guys asked me, he's like, "Can you get more of that BC bud?" A buddy of mine came down. He had a deodorant stick, and he put probably a quarter of an ounce, and he stuffed it all into an Old Spice deodorant stick. And no one had really seen hydroponic weed at that point in Seattle, Tacoma area, whatever. And after that season, next thing you know, 1 pound turned into 2 pounds, 2 pounds turned into 5. And next thing you know, I was pioneering a very lucrative BC bud boom that generated millions and millions of dollars. And so hockey, it took a bit of a, back seat. I was still playing hockey while I was doing this. And, but I got very, creative, so to speak, with the whole thing. I built a big, obviously an empire over the whole thing where, I think the best year we did, and I've been very open about this because I've now received, obviously, a pardon to go back down to the States after incarceration. And I'll get into that in a minute. But, we did close to $90 million in marijuana sales one year. That's sending down to New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. I had 3 safe houses, and I literally built it like a Fortune 500 company. And
in '93, it started. You bring 20 pounds of weed across in your hockey bag, just driving across, saying you're going to practice, and you're playing for the Wichita Thunder. You're going down in Tacoma, and man, the story's crazy because you get caught. And so continue. Well, I don't want to cut you off.
Pre 9/11, literally, you could drive through the border with a Scud missile on the back of your truck and be able to get through. It wasn't really a tough deal, so to speak. And I was a pretty boy at the time and young, and I had a Jeep YJ at the time, and top down, and threw some weed in the hockey bag there with my hockey stick, and I did have an alibi that I was going to see my host family in Tacoma. Let me go through, and that was my first encounter with jumping the border with illegal contraband. And I just wanted to do it again and again. Did it a few times, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Found a guy with a pace lane sticker at the time, and the pace lane sticker was actually allowed people that had properties down in, say, Washington or down the States, where they got wove right through. And so it was another hockey player that he had a pace lane sticker because his folks had a summer home down in Bellingham, Washington. So he was taking 50 pounds across in his trunk and a few bags. And next thing you know, it was just generating more money than I ever saw in my life. It was, but the money never made me happy. It was more or less kind of the adrenaline rush that I got through scoring a goal. And then that love and acceptance was different. There was no rookie hazing or anything like that. Gang activity hadn't got brought into the vortex of what I was doing. So I was just like this hockey kid that, had a pretty outgoing personality that was able to make contacts and connections and connect dots. And, the next thing I know, I got a different team around me.
Yeah.
So and that team was, it definitely changed over the years. The bigger it got, the darker it got with, obviously, gang activity and whatnot, which, I was never a violent guy. I tossed him on the ice a few times and definitely been on a lot of fights off the ice too. Was never one to start them, but I finished a few for sure that I'm not proud of. But it was just one of those things where it was like once I was in it, and it was spinning and generating like a machine, it was there was no stopping it. Like the momentum that they couldn't get enough of what I was sending down. Hundreds turned into 100 turned into 2, turned into 3. The cars turned into boats, turned into planes, turned into helicopters, and it was if you've ever seen the movie Blow. That's my life, but just marijuana. So
it was crazy because my roommate actually showed me the movie Blow a couple months ago, and it reminded me when I was watching this National Geographic documentary. It was crazy, and so I have so many questions about this, and it's not pertaining to athletes in general, but I think there's a lot to learn from your experience. And so you played for the Surrey Eagles 94-95. You played 8 games. That's right. Like I'm 5 minutes from my house, right across from the Peace Arch border. So I'm familiar with Bellingham, Washington, where you were doing all this work. I want to talk about the experience that when you and a couple buddies walked across the border, 8 hours logging road.
Oh,
you get across. Yeah. And I want to go in, I want to feel what that was like when you see the cherries behind you. You hear the police sirens, you got a helicopter above, like what's going through your mind?
Well, first of all, how I ended up in Surrey for those 8 games, I was playing for the Regina Pats, and the coach thought I was a spoiled brat from BC. Really, my dad was actually out of work at the time, and he was sending me maybe like $25 every couple of weeks. You get a few bucks as you're playing in the Western League, but it's not sustainable for, it gets you by maybe to get the odd Subway sandwich here and there or whatever. But I had a coach that grabbed me by the throat really bad, and he was always just like nonstop on top of me, like all over me. I remember scoring an overtime goal in Brandon and celebrating at the back of the bus. And this gentleman had never coached in the Western Hockey League before. He did have a reputation of being a hard ass, and next thing I know, he's got his fist in my face from he was coaching a tier 2 league the year before, and they won the championship, I guess. And he's like, "You think you're so good because you scored a goal, an overtime goal?" He's like, "Sell your effing ego down, blah, blah, blah." And I was just, went from being like up here and then just right down here. And it just like perpetuated with this gentleman. He was always calling me names and bring me into the office. How much money does your dad send you a week? He would single me out in front of the players all the time. And just the verbal and mental, like the abuse that this guy was putting on top of me was like, I couldn't take it. So I actually went to the owner of the Pats at the time, and I requested a trade. I said, it's either him or me. He's under contract. I know that. So am I. And I know that mine's not as big as his. So you either trade me or I'm leaving. And they said, well, we're not trading you. We don't want to trade you. We want you to stay here. And I said, well, then I'm leaving. And so I talked to the coach and the GM of the Surrey Eagles at the time. And I'd kind of given up, I guess, at some point. And I have that never give up attitude, but at that point it was just like, I was like, why is this all happening? And so when I went to Surrey, I didn't really put my whole heart into actually 100% on the ice. It was more or less kind of just a joke, like going from the Western Hockey League and then going down to play Tier 2 for me was like, it was a lot easier. Like the hockey was a lot easier. And I just felt like it was one of those things where now I can just do whatever I want because I played in the Western League. There's no rules for me. There's no curfew for me. I can just do whatever the fuck I want. And so then they actually traded me to the Vernon Lakers. And, as soon as I got to Vernon, I was put on the top line and, accumulated a lot of points. I still wasn't, the love just wasn't totally there, but it kind of did ignite a bit more of a fire, because I was playing lots, scoring lots, and, it was a good group of guys and whatnot. And, so played a year and a half pretty much in Vernon, and
you scored 42 points in 30 games. Like you started off well, right? You're playing well in Vernon, you're putting up points, and then you go to Wichita, you sign a contract there.
I started off the very next year and I was leading the league in scoring. I think I had I don't know, I think it was 2 points a game or something like that, playing on the third line. The coach didn't like me very much. I don't think he didn't really like my didn't give a fuck attitude at that point, kind of like, it was all on talent, really. It wasn't like I was, out there like busting my balls trying to make the NHL at that point. It was like I was 20 now. I felt like, my window of opportunity, it was gone. And really at that point, it was just my mindset had been, distorted, really. And, substance abuse kind of played into it a little bit too. I had no idea if I was like, an alcoholic or whatever. But at the same time, I was drinking every night before games and smoking weed during the day. And, so I was scoring and putting up those numbers, but, I really wasn't super healthy, to be honest with you.
Just performing, bare minimum to perform, eh?
Yeah. So how I put up those numbers was, I guess that's a testament to just going out there and just doing what I had to do. But I was playing a lot, I was playing 20 minutes a game sometimes. So, I was getting those, I don't know, maybe a lot of lucky bounces too.
Fair enough. But so you go down to Wichita after that Vernon Lakers successful season and you meet your girlfriend, you make eye contact with her on the ice. It's love at first sight. That's all in the documentary as well. And I assume it's roughly 9-10 months later, you find out she's pregnant. And
actually we dated for a couple years and we dated for a couple years and she spent a lot of time in Canada with me too, and she was a wonderful lady. And I saw her in warm up and her smile was just caught me, and I gave her a wink and I told my trainer, I said, if you go talk to that girl in the fifth row there and ask her if she'd like to meet up after the game and come to one of our we used to have our after game parties at Hooters. They were one of our sponsors. So all the fans would come and we, free beer and you know how it is, the hockey life. You got all the groupies and people hanging out, and we're just people, right? We're not what we do. Hockey's just something I did. It's not who I am. But at that point, so much egos into it. It's just there's always different rules for the hockey players, and it was just one of those things where, I met her, and, she was, we had a child together a few years later, and she knew what I was doing with my extracurricular activities with, sending weed across the border. She wasn't too happy with that, especially when Sadie was born, my daughter.
Right.
And, there was kind of the choice there. It was like either, stick with her or keep doing what I was doing. I said, just let me do this for one more year. I'm going to take a year off hockey. I was, just turned 23 at the time. And, I just want to do this for the family, do this for my kid, for you. It'll give us a kickstart on life. And next thing I know, I had a hiking trail that we'd found actually with helicopter aerial maps. And there was a logging road that was about 12 kilometers up, about 2.5 hours away from the actual border. So you're way up in the woods there. And we found that there was, it was like a big bushwhack, about 7-8 hour bushwhack that could enable you to get to the other side of the border. Now, on the other side of the border was a national state park called Glacier National State Park. And my driver, he actually showed up late. And one of the reasons why I was actually on that trail bushwhack that day is an inside job with guys that were working for me, whatever, kicked in the doors of my safe house and sold about $275,000 worth of marijuana. That's what it was worth at that time. Now there's such an abundance of it, it's cheap. Yeah, and so I thought people were out to get me. I thought people were wanting to kill me. I was young. My head was spinning like a one-legged duck. I was fucked. And I was working with a triad at the time who was, deeply involved with, like, obviously, it's organized crime. And, he threatened all of the whole crew except for me because he knew, like, he trusted me, he trusted my honesty and whatnot. And I said, there's no way these guys would rip me off. There's no way. These guys are all, like, part of, like, the spectrum, so to speak. And, I said, we can make this, we can cry about it and take the hit, or, let's get another 100 pounds back and we can make it back in one run. And I'll go with these guys and I'll make sure everything goes smooth. And I had that gut feeling the night before. There was just something inside me that was like, just wasn't right. I remember being at my parents' house. It was, it would have been September the 17th of 1999, September 17th. Yeah. In and around that time. Sorry if I don't get the dates right. The paperwork's on the internet. Anyways, sure as all shit, went across the border with, the backpacks on the back, and got to the other side of the border. We made it across, and our driver was late. There was one rule that I gave him, and the rule was never go to the airport to rent a vehicle because there's a lot of federal agents that actually look out for suspicious activity. And later on, I found out after I'd actually gotten out that he'd gone and rented a car at the airport like 7 or 8 times in a row.
Oh my God.
He actually led the United States Border Patrol right to us. So about 10 kilometers, about 10 kilometers, so 8 miles down the highway. Next thing I know, we were being followed. He said he thought we were being followed. I was like, I'll just sleep on the stuff in the woods overnight. We can just do it tomorrow. No, let's just get it done. And the next thing you know, that impulsivity, that just to get it done. Next thing I know, cherries behind us. There was 2 helicopters, 2 big Suburbans. They were Ford Expeditions at the time. And pull over, this is DEA, and it was like right there. My whole life, flashed before my eyes. I was like, just keep driving. What should we do here? I mean, my first thought was get out of the car and run through the river or jump into the mountains and just try to get everyone go their own way and keep your mouth shut. And let's just, like, I didn't really know the ramifications, I guess. You know, it'd been so easy in the past that all of a sudden it was like, oh my God. And I didn't know how long I'd be like, it was just, I mean, my mind was just like all over the map, so to speak. And, you know, I said, just pull over. Let's just we got to take the lumps here. We did this. We're guilty. Next thing you know, we get thrown out of the car, guns drawn to the head, off to Whatcom County Jail. And we all had to make statements. I didn't say a goddamn word. And next thing you know, it was Whatcom County Jail called my old man and told my I was in prison, and he couldn't believe it. He was devastated. And there was, you know, just that feeling of having your freedom taken away. It was just like so debilitating. It was, you know, nowhere to go, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And I was thrown into a cell block at this county jail with, you know, heroin addicts and whatnot. And, you know, at that point, I mean, I was just like, I was so messed up. You know, I remember actually reading I was on the top bunk of this bunk in this jail cell, and it said, "Welcome to hell." And literally that's how I felt. You know, Mom came down to see me the next day, and I was, you know, she was in tears. I was just trying to stay strong. And, you know, they're, you know, the government at that time, you know, obviously the law enforcement was trying to figure out, you know, whether or not to take it federal or state. And because of the number of pounds, it was 103 pounds of high grade marijuana that fit the curriculum for being thrown into a supermax federal penitentiary. And I got 2 years, didn't see the light of day for 2 years. So I looked like a concentration camp victim when I got out. I looked like Casper the Ghost, for Christ's sakes. But through the love of my family and through just believing in myself, I guess. And, you know, I think my sense of humor kind of got me through it. You know, all those things that you see in prison actually is even worse while you're in there. So,
For sure.
you know, I didn't really have a lot of issues when I was in there. I did have to fight one time. I was, the Canadians were like pretty neutral in there. Like we were almost like a different race, but you know, a lot of racism goes on in there. You're in there with the Mexican mafia. You're in there with the Crips, the Bloods, you know, you name it. You know, it's all walks of life, so to speak. But I was kind of that chameleon that could adapt to other people's personalities. And next thing you know, my cell became like a magnet. It was, you know, there'd be 20 some odd people hearing stories, and they were really intrigued about, like, you know, I wasn't in there for a violent crime. I was in there because I was taking some plants across the border. And, you know, obviously I felt the guilt and the shame, and, you know, I've done my best to let that go. You know, I think it affected more my family than it did you know, for myself. There's a lot of other families shunned, you know, my mom and my dad. And those are the same people now that have bought into like marijuana stocks, and a lot of people that are involved in the industry now that's being legalized. And, you know, like that's opened a door for me to be able to talk freely about it too. Right. So
For sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting because so in that article, you spend your 2 years down there, and, you know, normally, you know, that's 700 days worth of reflection and, time to think back on the decisions you make, but you get out and you decide, I want to do this bigger and better. And
well, I got an education while I was in there. I mean, going to jail really is like an education for criminals. I never considered myself a criminal. I was a smuggler. I was running a business. Even though it was illegal, I literally was running it like a legitimate business. And, you know, I was very like meticulous and organized, you know, the way I did things. And, so, you know, it was one of those things where, you know, just, I took the time, actually. I read probably 300 books. I blow through a large book in one day, even sometimes. I read probably 300 books. I read one book all throughout high school. I think maybe I got halfway
as soon as you get to jail.
You know, other than the Archie Andrews comics I read when I was a kid, you know, whatever. But, you know, I did use that time for a lot of self-introspection. I had a lot of resentment, obviously, to obviously the country of the United States at the time for locking me up for, you know, it wasn't a long time in retrospect, but, you one day having your freedom taken away is to me is, if it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, like, look, I fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
I broke the law. I paid the price. Now, when I was told that I wasn't allowed back to the United States again, I was like, pretty much, fuck you. So now I'm going to send down as much contraband, so to speak, as possible with that the green leaf, so to speak. I never got into that hard stuff, whatever. It was always only marijuana. So, with that being said, I got out within 2 or 3 days. I was working with guys that I'd met in jail. They trusted me, obviously, because they knew that I wasn't an informant. I showed them my paperwork and whatnot. And within 3 months, I was a millionaire again and partying like a rock star, right back into it. And, while I was in there for 500 days, I had such a clear mind too, and you're structured. Prison is very structured, like the military. And, I read, like I said, I even meditated, and, it was really connected to, like, say, like, source energy, what I've now begun to kind of like compartmentalize, so to speak. But yeah, when I got out, it got taken to another level, and, it just kept growing and growing and growing. I never got caught again, but, there was, when the gang activity, it really came, full force, into my experience, where, threats on my life, losing friends due to incarceration, addiction, murder. I mean, I can't, if I got out a piece of paper and my acquaintances that I was involved with, I couldn't even name how many people are dead.
Right.
I'm one of the lucky ones that never, because there was a lot of, stuff that was being brought into my awareness, that there was people that were out to get me. And that was like, for what, but that's all part of that life. That's organized crime for you. That's my message too, for anyone that ever has, that thinks that it's a cool thing to do, selling drugs or, getting into that life is something that is, it doesn't look so good when you're in it. Believe me.
So how do you go from, obviously I'm an entrepreneur, I have that business mindset, same as you. How do you stay with only weed? Like, when you see the amount of money that can be made with other drugs, I mean, there's a story in there where you get pointed a gun at your head for someone who thought you stole $2 million worth of 70 kilos of cocaine. Like, how do you go through that and not think, I want to get bigger, I want to get better, and, expand from just marijuana?
Well, that's a good question. They couldn't, the supply couldn't meet the demand. So
Wow.
my markets they could take as many as I could, as much as I could get down there, they could take. And I was completely against bringing back the other contraband, which was obviously cocaine. It was just, I mean, I was making way more money probably than most people that were bringing back the coke anyways, because we were sending down so much. There was, the thousands and thousands of pounds that went on for years, that was going down was, I mean, it was like winning the lottery every other day, pretty much. Just bags and hockey bags and suitcases of money. I had no idea how much money was coming in. It was like, at one point, I had 7 safe houses with 6-foot safes with millions of dollars in them. Like I had to pay guys to sit on safes in houses that I rented, because I rented. I know that was like my biggest problem was finding places to put the money. I had no idea, like, where do I put the next safe? Where do I put the next $1 million? And my spending habit was ridiculous. That lifestyle, obviously, well, when you got that kind of money, you can do anything. Mm-hmm. And I will say, the one thing that marijuana did give me was the opportunity to have the freedom to, even though I wasn't allowed down in the States, I traveled to over 70 countries in my life. I've seen the world. Culture and education's always been like a major, major thing in my life. And so yeah, I was able to travel the world on marijuana money pretty much. But I also channeled a lot of that into where I was, I was building homes, I was accumulating properties.
Right.
And I never thought what I was doing I was like, I can't be doing this forever. And then when things got really, really bad, I would say, almost, God, it would be probably 12, 13 years ago, where it was like, I was on my way out and things were just like, one thing after another, the threats on the life, especially having to take a lie detector test. Thank God I passed it because I was innocent, that I didn't steal 70 kilograms of cocaine. That was kind of one of those things where I was like, it's time to walk away from this. But it's like the mafia, man. It's like, I was leading the charge. I was the convoy really that was bringing all the income for a lot of these fair weather friends, so to speak. I don't talk to any of them now. I have $0 from those days, not a cent. And I just came to the conclusion that I'd taken so much from the world that it was actually time to give back. And these guys, so to say that, the muscle guys that were behind my crew, they didn't take too kindly to me bowing out. But I was like, it's all yours. Take it all. All the markets are yours. Everything's yours. I want nothing to do with this. And I left. I moved away from Vancouver. I moved to Montreal for a while. I was living in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and just traveling the world. And just like, I wanted nothing to do with anything that had any involvement with what I was doing, what I'd been doing. And it was time to make a change. And I knew that, and that a lot of that was an awakening that came through, not just, a gun to the head, not all the, I mean, I could go on for hours and hours and hours and tell all kinds of stories of craziness. But, really at the end of the day, it was like, I felt like my time was up. And if I didn't make that change, I don't know, something just came into my heart where I really just wanted to give back. I actually picked up a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And this book, in the beginning, it says you can be, do, or have whatever you want with certain principles. I had the money, but I wasn't allowed back in the States. And that's where my daughter was residing, obviously, at the time with her mom. And, I was providing monetary for her, but, obviously not being there as a father was really bothering me a lot. And picked up this book, and I followed the principles to the T. I wrote down on a card, I said, I will be allowed back in the States by this time. And through the principle of auto-suggestion, which is, the medium for influencing the subconscious mind. So through repetitions of affirmations, I was literally planting that seed, this boom, 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 which is leading me into different life experiences. And I was attracting through the law of vibration, the law of attraction that we hear so much about. And next thing I know, I find myself riding a bicycle across Cambodia while we were filming a documentary on happiness about giving back. And after that bike ride, to help raise awareness for the eradication of human trafficking and child sex slavery, the very next day, literally to the date that I put on that card, I flew from Siem Reap, Cambodia to Chiang Mai, Thailand. And I woke up at about 6 o'clock in the morning. My cameraman was beside me, and I had my BlackBerry at the time. And I remember looking at it, and it was actually I had an email, and it was my father actually had sent me the email because the Department of Homeland Security didn't have my email. They contacted my father, and I was granted humanitarian, which I hate that fucking word. Good human. I think we should all just be good humans, be kind and compassionate to everybody. There's, people that are doing good in the world. There's people that are doing bad in the world. It's all a perception. But at that time I was like, oh my God, like everything that I wrote down, it happened. I somehow made it happen through faith and through actually being of service to the world and not taking from the world, and just like giving with an open heart with no, did I expect it? I mean, when I reading that card for almost 2 years straight, probably 50 times, even a day, even when I was in the shower, I had it laminated be sitting on the toilet reading it, for Christ's sakes. And, that's how bad, the burning desire behind it to get back down to the States and see my kid and make a difference in the world. Yeah, I mean, it works. Whatever you think about, you bring about. Whatever you focus on expands. So, there's a whole spiritual side to that too, that it kind of reinforce that, what you give, you get. And, whatever you put out there, you got to be careful what you ask for, because it can come back in ways that I always say, you don't have to know how, you just have to know that you will.
For sure. Well, and it's a testament to your hard work and, ultimately the fact that you were willing to go through whatever it took to get there. You rode your bike across Cambodia twice, right? And you're traveling across 3 times. There you go. Look at that.
Twice to help the eradication of human trafficking and child sex slavery, which is a tough one, obviously. Anything to do with children, it's horrible. So, I put my work in with that, and eventually I was, blessed enough to even do a TED Talks on the whole thing. And I never taken a public speaking course in my life, and closed down a TED Talks on that experience. And but it was something that it hurt a lot to see, seeing these kids and what they've gone through. And later on, reliving that was tough to kind of like go through. That affected me mentally, even just to know that goes on. It's tough, but we live in a world that, hey, it's black and white. It's can't have the so-called good, whatever you think's good, and the bad without, you can't have one without the other. That's just the way it is. People's mindsets are changing. I believe, especially in these days. In these times of drastic change, people are really showing their true colors of wanting to help other people out or not. And a lot of people are falling to the wayside with addiction issues, with mental health issues. It is what it is. But I rode across 5 countries in 2019 to help raise awareness for mental health. 4 countries in Asia, and then I thought, it'd be a travesty if I didn't get back to my home country of Canada and ride across the second largest landmass in the world. And I set that intention, and
made it happen. And how was it? Because I was going to bring the ride for that as well. So you're a mental health advocate. Now you're doing these rides to eradicate human trafficking and child sex slavery. And so, you go from one end of the spectrum to the other, literally, right? And you're granted this pardon to go down to the States. Now you've got this ability, and you're making these amazing changes and doing these things, these selfless acts of kindness that are just bringing so much good to the world. You're jumping into the Atlantic with hundreds of people watching and taking photographs of you with your bike after you've just ridden across Canada. And how I can't imagine what that's like. And if you can give a bit of that insight as to how it felt to get across there, have all these people supporting you, and just knowing where you were a decade ago compared to where you are now.
Well, it was one of those things where it was an impulse of thought. It was that desire, that triggering mechanism, that just, after I think I was home for not even 3 weeks from Southeast Asia after, doing those rides. And I'm not a cyclist, I'm an ex-hockey player that, that can ride a bike. And I don't know, it was almost like there was some sort of force that was behind me that was propelling me forward. And it was not easy. It was a very emotional ride. I didn't announce it or make a big deal of it, but it did catch, some media, going across. Obviously, when you're doing something like that, people, they pick up on it. And, we shot the whole thing and did do a documentary, which unfortunately hasn't been released due to what's going on in the world right now. People letting us stay at their homes, campgrounds free of charge. I think I'm still going through post-traumatic bike across Canada syndrome, because all the people that were crying on my shoulder and telling me their stories, and I'm very empathic because, mental health, runs deep in my family. Just, a lot of, like, when I say mental health, there's, a lot of illnesses as well with, alcoholism and, the closest person in my life right now, she's having a battle of her life, dealing with the label of schizophrenia. And so I felt compelled to do it. Next thing I know, I'm in CBC newsrooms and Global and all that, which was, hats off to CBC, Global, CTV and all that for actually, having me in. But what people didn't see behind it, behind the smile was, those long, grueling hours. I don't think there was one day where I didn't do, at least 100 kilometers. It got up to when there was 4 days left, I kind of set a timetable where I wanted to do it in 60 days. Mm-hmm. And so I think I did like close to 800 kilometers those last 4 days. I know one day I did 287 kilometers. I rode 17 hours straight.
All downhill?
No, uphill, downhill, like the roller coaster, buddy. Like such is life. And, there was times where I'd bend over, I'd take a break and I just like literally just have breakdowns on the side of the road and just be like, holy shit. Like even when I was halfway through, I was like, I couldn't really see the end, like,
for sure.
I had a support vehicle ahead of me, but really I was doing it on my own, almost getting blown off the road. I don't know how many times. I got hit by a car a few times. It broke my right collarbone, not in half, but I cracked it pretty good.
Jesus.
And, I had to visit probably 7 hospitals along the way. I'm not on any medication right now for depression or anything, but I did try some medication because I was told I was bipolar, which now I know is not. It's just post-traumatic stress from, life experience that I've gone through and put myself through. And the lithium that they actually gave me was bleeding through my skin. Like it was horrible. And so the exhaustion, but still like waking up with my knees, like I could hardly walk, but just being like, I got to do this. I put so much commitment into this. This is for the people. This was never Ryan's ride at all. This was just a ride for the people that I could just somehow, in some way, just be able to give a piece of my heart to the country that I grew up with and grew up in, obviously, and shed light on the topic that, like who gives a shit who you are or where you've been, whether you're an actor or a NHL hockey player, we're all the same at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. We all suffer in the physical world. We all got stuff that we all have challenges, and just, to really just like, try to remove the stigma as much as I can, just to open up dialogue, just to open up dialogue from other people. And, the ripple effect was really, really awesome with that. Even to this day, it's like, a lot of people reach out, and it's given me more of a platform, I would say, to be able to like tell my own story and give people hope. Right. It's, that I think I hugged the Terry Fox pavilion for about an hour in Thunder Bay where he stopped his ride, because he was a real inspiration. Obviously, Terry Fox was. I'm no Terry Fox, but God, just to see what he did, because he cared. And at the end of the day, that's why I've done what I've done. I haven't done it to try to be famous. I haven't done any of these things to like be like, hey, I'm Ryan Phillips, and I played junior hockey and it didn't work out, and I was a big drug dealer, blah blah blah. At the end of the day, it was for the millions of people in the world, really, that are suffering in tremendous pain and silence, and to bring those, obviously give those people the courage to talk, and and not go down that dark road of maybe taking their own life.
Well, I think I can speak for the majority of people, if not everyone, and say thank you for what you've done. I think it's amazing what you have done, and it's the fact that you're just doing it out of the goodness of your heart is what's really cool about it. And I think I'm excited and appreciative that I'm able to share this story. Right? And how did your body? Yeah, how did your body react to 60 days? I mean, it was like, what were you drop
Another
pounds?
great
Were you
question.
eating? Yeah, like I'm so curious about that.
Well, I usually sit between about 195 and 205. At the end of that ride, I was 168 pounds. When I was 16, I was 185 pounds.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
you couldn't even pinch an inch. But yeah,
Jesus.
taxing. It was really
Yeah.
taxing on the physical body. And I'll tell you, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday that out of New York, and he was really inspired by the ride and whatnot. And as soon as this whole thing clears up, hopefully it's sooner than later. I'd really like this spring to ride across the United States. My intention
Hmm.
was actually to ride across the world for the cause and just keep going. Um,
Wow.
but things do happen in life, and obviously a lot of things are stagnant right now. The economy's taking a hit. We're all being affected in different ways, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's definitely. I called it. Actually, I was coming back from Los Angeles from a film festival about 2 days before this whole thing really hit. And I said it was Global that I had the interview with, and I said, this is, I think, really, this is going to affect more people on the addiction side and mental health aspect than it is the actual, sickness of the C word that I refuse to say.
Right.
And it has, so many people have checked out due to addictions and overdoses and whatnot. And it's quite unfortunate, but
Yeah. Well,
yeah, so.
it is unfortunate. It's a shame, and it's put an put a damper on a lot of people's lives. And there's a lot of people that are overcoming it and finding different ways. I think that's what's cool about the whole process, and what's
Yeah.
cool about people in general is the fact that they're able to overcome these things and do better, and make adjustments so that their business can prosper. I hadn't really talked about it with anyone prior to this, but I was sick. I did get that C word.
Oh,
So
really? Wow.
so I was out of commission for 2 weeks. So that's why we took a little hiatus on the podcast. I wanted to kind of make sure we came back strong. And that's why I wanted you to be the first person back, because you
Thank you.
had
I'm
an
honored.
amazing, yeah, well, you had an amazing story to share, and you still do. Everything that you're about, everything that you're doing is incredible. And I think it's something that people should listen to and make sure that they, really understand their actions and how it can impact the rest of the world. And even if it's just, one small thing that they're doing, it can really have a deep impact on a lot of people, without even any financial reward in return, right? You're not looking for anything. It's just out of the goodness of your heart, like I said.
Well, that's the thing about giving back is when you give, don't expect anything in return. And
Mhm.
when you don't expect anything in return and you just do it from a place of love, the things that come back to you, you just never know where you never sources from unknown forces, maybe.
Ooh, I like it.
I don't know where that came from, but
So tell me about
yes.
what you're up to now, because you've got your own podcast. You're
Yeah.
going through that. It seems like you're enjoying that process. I've seen a
Challenging.
couple. It is, yeah. Okay, so tell me about it. What's your take so far? You're 6 episodes in, right?
We actually just fired off 7 and 8. We did back to
Oh, look
backs
at
on this past Sunday. We had ex NHL guy Dodie Wood, who's just a beauty.
that.
He was 45th overall with the Sharks, and so much more than an enforcer, so much more than a fighter. And um, we've had Riley Cote on, who was he was in a lot of these guys that I'm having on. Actually, are guys that I really connect to on a deep level. A lot because of the concussions that I've sustained. I've sustained 7 diagnosed concussions. So a lot of the guys that I've had on the show are ex NHL tough guys. Our first guest we had was a guy named Robbie Shrimp. He was a first rounder from the Edmonton Oilers. I'm sure you're probably aware of Robbie.
Yep. Yep.
Unbelievable hockey player, but way better person. The person behind the skates and the stick is just, Robbie's a great friend of mine and came on the show, and the kind of the ripple effect, people saw Robbie was on, and other guys reached out, and I've had so many guys in the hockey world being like, oh, I can throw you this guy, whatever. And, it's not just about hockey players, it's about getting into the psyche of that person behind the game. So all over the map really is, I've been all over the map. Most hockey players have been all over the goddamn map too. I'm a bull in a china shop. I can admit, I'm a circus sideshow half the time. So, I was trying to just get these guys, to tell their story, like they sacrifice their mind, their body, their soul, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the loyalty that, fighting and battling like warriors for their team. You don't really look at it back then, but it's no different really than Gladiator, for crying out loud, man. The fighting's dissipated from the game, thank God. And a lot of these guys, none of these guys are violent people. We had George Larac was I think my third guest, and I don't know. Are you familiar who George is?
Yeah, Montreal. He played for Montreal. He played for a bunch of teams actually.
Yeah, I played for Edmonton, Montreal, Pittsburgh. And George, great guy, great message, such a positive guy. And talk about a guy that has come from humble beginnings. All these guys. It's just been a real honor to have these guys on All Over the Map podcast, and just giving them a voice, and where I can sit back and I don't have to talk. I just ask the questions. But the challenging part is, is doing the R&D, is the research on these guys, because a lot of them are friends. But at the same time, it's oh, I didn't know you did this. I didn't know you did that. So I really want to shed light on what they're doing for the community now. What are they doing for humanity now? What are your aspirations for the future on being able to give your message and pay it forward for the next generation coming up?
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of sports psychologists. Where it's going is where it's going to go is I all I know is I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best because I'm a creative guy. At the end of the day, I believe we all have creative faculties and deep reservoirs of genius from within that need to be expressed. And if we're not expressing, those God-given gifts, then we're just kind of spinning, like I said, like a one-legged duck.
Yeah, well, it's Luke Gazdic was on the podcast earlier. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was episode 3940. I can't remember. But he was an enforcer as well in the NHL. Talked about what it takes and what it means to the teammates, and there's so much that goes into it outside of the fist being thrown for the 30 or 20 seconds that it is, right? But that's what I do love about the podcast, is being able to share. It's a long form medium, which is amazing because people get to articulate their thoughts and share, for instance, you talking about, what it's like when you see the cherries behind, what it's like spending 18 months, 2 years in jail, those kind of things you don't get from TikTok or Snapchat. It just doesn't happen. And I think that's where podcasting is something that's here for a long time. And I'm glad I'm able to share these stories. Have you heard of Heads Up Can?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I have actually. Yeah,
okay. So two buddies of mine, Ryan Sutton and Seth Mendelson. I went to school with them. So they're a sponsor of the podcast.
Seth actually spoke I did a public speaking thing in Belleville with Dan Carcillo. And Seth
with the tour.
Pardon me?
With their tour with the Ducky brand?
Yeah, with Ducky brand. Yeah.
Nice. So there we go.
They fire me off all kinds of gear all the time. I love what they stand for, and their owner and co-founder Aiden, he's a good buddy of mine, and but Seth did such a good job, with Headspun and whatnot, and Heads
Up Can.
Heads Up Can, yeah. Sorry, Headspun, yeah.
That's okay. Concussion.
That's me. That's my concussion hitting me right now, or just my my memory knocking me, or whatever.
Heads Up Can.
Mad props to Seth. That's a great guy. We didn't talk for that long, but I heard what he had to say, and what a gracious guy, and I love what they're doing. And Jake Tugnuck actually is a really good friend of mine. We talk all the time, and I know he's one of their advocates as well. So
Yeah, it's something that I've gone through a couple concussions as well myself, and it's something that we have a partnership with them. I basically everything that gets used for our discount code, I'm putting back towards them. So I just send whatever gets used, I'm putting it all back towards them to continue their research for the Concussion Advocacy Network. And it's really important. I think it's something that, over the next decade, it'll be cool for us to look back and continue doing work together and see where we're both at. And
Yeah, let me
it's a
know
lot
how
of
I can
fun.
let me know how I can help. God, I mean,
100%. Well, we're planning a second AP tour. It's in the works. So I think we'll be heading to the West Coast this time, and we'll definitely have to stop in the interior, check you guys out.
So where are you right now? You're you're in Ontario.
St. Catharines. Yeah. St. Catharines,
Yeah.
Ontario. Good old Middle East, as my uncle likes to call it.
Sweet.
So I have, one or two more questions here because, it's only so often I get to chat with you.
Hey, we can always do another episode, man.
100%, we will. You'll be on again, but you've touched on it, and I, as a mental health advocate, as a podcaster, as a former athlete, and the last question we ask on all of these podcasts is, what piece of advice would you give to that younger generation of athletes as to how to succeed, how to move forward, get to the next level? What would Ryan Phillips' answer to that question be?
Well, I mean, I believe that there's actually no end destination, that you have to actually be the goal. You have to live in that goal and feel it and be it. And really I mean, if you want something bad enough and you want to, transmute that into physical reality, really you have to be that. You have to feel it in every part of your being, in every fiber of your being. And, also just treating people kind, just, along the way, and, just being respectful to your own body and working hard, nothing really, but also, work smarter, not harder. Everything's a balance, right? So, you can go train for 4 hours. Is that really going to be beneficial, or is it going to going 4 hours hard, or, I don't know. It's different for everybody,
Yeah.
For me, I guess my message is number one, just set a goal, set an intention, and you don't have to know how, you just have to know that you will. And that was just I've taken that on with everything that I've done in my life, and it's always worked out. And it's just that unwavering belief and having faith in yourself, but not only having faith in yourself, but having faith in the infinite, and in that, in now. Everything's created right now, in the eternal now, so to speak. So it's when I'm out of alignment and I'm not feeling so hot, or if I'm off track or off path, I know that my goal is probably, not being fed the food that it deserves, so it's the subconscious mind, really. It's planting those seeds into that subconscious mind and letting those seeds germinate until they blossom, really.
Damn. It's amazing. And it's that was such a deep answer. A lot of the athletes that have come on, talk about the physical aspect, work hard, train hard, and you took that to a whole nother level. Ryan Phillips, I really appreciate you coming on the Athletes Podcast, man. This has been an amazing episode. If you have any last words, please feel free to share them. I think when this goes live on Thursday, we might have to go on an Instagram live and, really tell people how amazing this was, because it's a pretty amazing story, what you've been through, how you've come to be who you are today. And again, I can't thank you enough.
I guess, first of all, love yourself. And when you love yourself and you can actually accept yourself for who you really are, then you can exude that love outwards, and the world's your oyster. Life is what you make of it. We're the creators of our own reality, and I firmly believe that. So I send nothing but love out to everybody who's listening to this podcast, and I just that's my heart for you, buddy.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Again, thank you to all those listening to the Athletes Podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.